Hello, huge movie fanatic Nate coming at you to do another movie review, because that's what I do on this channel. Coming at you today to review the early 80s, I don't know, I'd call it more of a, thriller slash mystery movie than a horror movie. Coming at you to review Night School. And the whole reason I'm doing this review is because this, I don't know if it's out now or if it's going to come out, but if it's not out now, it's coming out very soon. Warner is actually going to put out a Blu-ray of this particular title. And when I found out, when I heard that news, whenever it was, months ago or whatever, I was like, oh, cool, because, obviously I had the VHS and I've seen it before, and I was very much, looking forward to adding it to my Blu-ray collection or whatever. And then just someday I was just like, it occurred to me, well, I got the VHS, I haven't seen this in a long time, why don't I watch it just to make sure. I don't know, I don't think it was, I just wanted to make sure, because I wasn't familiar with it, let me make sure it's worth getting on Blu-ray, and I'm kind of glad I did that, because having rewatched this movie recently, within the last several weeks, I kind of deduced, in my opinion, that for me anyway, it wasn't really worth upgrading to Blu-ray, so I'm coming at you to review Night School. Now this, I don't know if this is, officially or... So it's saying 1981, and it might, I don't know for sure or not, but this might very well be what's-her-name's first movie. Rachel Ward, who was just breaking out in the early 80s, so this might be her first movie. There's a lot of movies that she did around the same time, like, Final Terror and this and all of this kind of stuff, so it's hard to tell which movie was the first movie she was in, but this is... I want to say it says introducing Rachel Ward in the opening credits, but I might be mistaken. But at any rate, this is a movie that features one of the first Rachel Ward movies. It features a very young and sultry, and we do get to see her kind of naked. I can't remember if we get to really see her topless. It might be like side boob or whatever, but you get to see like her butt in the shower in this goofy scene with her and a professor or whatever. So this movie is basically about this particular character Rachel Ward plays is like an exchange student. I mean, Rachel Ward's British, so she's got a British accent. So in the movie they kind of, they don't have her speak American accent, they have her just do British, and in that way they can say she's a exchange student or whatever in this kind of night school college program at night or whatever. And I think she's studying with this professor guy who's like, I can't remember the particulars, but I mean he's she's studying like ancient whatever tribal rituals of whatever that relate to beheadings and all this kind of this and that or whatever, so, and tribal just ritual this and that and stuff. So basically the beginning of the movie involves this young woman who's like she's like a student. I think basically pretty much every victim in this movie, I can't even remember. I mean, I watched it weeks ago. I can't even remember all the details. But, the first kind of kill in this movie... Oh, it should also be said that, I mean, the killer in this movie is this cool kind of cliched thing which will end up being done years later in Nail Gun Massacre with this, like, guy or this individual that's wearing, like, just a all black, like, leather jacket and a motorcycle black helmet with the black, visor and all this kind of crap. So it's a kind of a cool... lame at the same time outfit for the killer or whatever, and it's a movie that I don't know, yeah, I definitely call it more of a thriller slash mystery than a horror slash slasher. It's if you're expecting a slasher, it's really not really big on. I mean, it's one of these movies that it almost seems in a way made for TV in regards to the way the gore is portrayed, as in there is like not very much of it. It's almost like implied gore or whatever. So it does kind of, yeah, it just kind of occurred to me right now that it does almost play like a made-for-TV movie in that regard. So that's why I wouldn't regard it as a horror movie so much as a thriller slash mystery. So this young character who's like in college, presumably goes to night school. The movie starts with her getting out, just having finished daycare or something, like, watching a particular child or whatever. So she's on a merry-go-round, and in a kind of a interesting idea for a kill, she's just, daydreaming or night dreaming or whatever on this merry-go-round after, watching over this kid she's babysitting, and this biker character shows up, and I want to say the music goes like, wah, 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 or just some kind of goofy, early 80s thriller music, and it's just like, and this all in black, and the black helmet and visor, just killer appears and wah, 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 and just like starts twirling her around, which is kind of cool on this merry-go-round, and wah, 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 wah. She's spinning around, and he's like, it like opens, or this blade is revealed, which almost looks like a what's that called, a boomerang or whatever. Maybe it's a boomerang blade, who knows? But wah, 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 he's spinning her around. She's like, she could just jump off at any time, but it's a movie. It's just like wah, 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 and it's just like and like he's the killer's like playing with the blade, like pulling it, pushing it in and out, like teasing her, like one of these times I'm gonna leave it, as you pass by, and it's gonna whack, and of course that's what happens. I don't think we really see it, but obviously it's implied, and I'm not gonna do a beat by beat on this movie, obviously, because I just don't want to, plus I don't really remember, so I can't. But basically, it does have the more I think about it and talk about it, the more the movie does really feel like, not only in the kills, but maybe just the rest of it as well. It does seem like it just kind of a very subdued, kind of just made-for-TV movie. But I don't think it is, because obviously it's got, a pretty exposing nude scene with Rachel Ward in the shower or whatever, and she's doing this goofy-ass kind of whatever, just, native kind of ritual with this professor guy or whatever. I can't remember, like I say, if you get to see her breasts from the front or whatever. She does this thing where she kind of turns around. You get to see her butt, so that's good. I think you can, I think at one point you see her breasts, whatever. So, so that's one of the pluses about it. They kind of tease you with Rachel Ward's nudity or whatever, which is kind of a bummer, but so, I don't know, I guess I can, I think I'm going to spoil it. I think I'm going to, I don't know, I think I'm going to spoil this. So if you don't want to, if you don't want to be spoiled, if you haven't seen Night School and are looking to and don't want it to be spoiled, you probably shouldn't listen to this review any further, because I'm going to spoil it. So basically, the whole premise of this movie is, this particular professor that Rachel Ward's fooling around with is, basically has obviously known to fool around, and having had fooled around with his, students in the past and stuff like that. So basically the premise of this movie is basically, I think the majority of these girls were basically at either, at the time of this movie or earlier, sometime in the past, either were at the time or have been students of his or whatever, female students. So obviously this professor is kind of the red herring in this movie, and the guy that everyone, the characters and obviously the audience are supposed to think is the killer in this movie. And obviously I've seen it before, I haven't seen it in a long time, but obviously when I was watching it I was like, well, it's just clearly they're just putting the blame on him or making him seem like the killer, when obviously you've got these really quick bits of Rachel Ward's character being jealous anytime she sees the professor flirting with any of his other female students. So obviously it's Rachel Ward doing the killing, because basically she'll see him flirt with this female student, and then later on in the next scene that student will die. So it's kind of like, I don't know if it's incompetence on the writer's point, incompetence of the writer or whatever. It's pretty obvious from the get-go that Rachel Ward is the killer, and then obviously, it's revealed towards the end of the movie that she is. And what's really goofy about this movie is, like, she's pregnant with, like, the professor's child or whatever, and it's really weird because it's like at the end of the movie when it's revealed to the audience and also the professor that she's the one who's been killing all these girls, which presumably, actually the professor doesn't even have to screw him. All he's got to do is flirt with someone, like a waitress later on, and then she'll kill the waitress too. So I would imagine that the only victims in this movie are women, and unless the guy is flirting with other guys, which I don't remember him doing. So when it's revealed that Rachel Ward is the killer to the audience and the professor, it's just like, and then she says like, oh, you can't turn me in because what'll happen to our baby or whatever. So it's like a really weird plot point. If I remember correctly, like the end of this movie, there's this chase where the black clad, leather jacket and black helmet clad character on the motorcycle spins away on his little motorcycle, and then at this time we think it's Rachel Ward. And then there's a little bit of a chase scene, and then like, I don't know, a police car drives in front of him and he flips over the police car, and to reveal, you know, and I think there's this cop in this movie, which also I think the cop thinks it's the professor all along, and then when you expect it to be, you know, Rachel Ward revealed at the, you know, after the biker on the bike flips over the cop car or whatever and gets killed or whatever, they pull off the helmet and it's the professor, and it's just like, so what? The professor's taking the fall just so his child, you know, I mean, doesn't grow up in jail. I don't know what happens if a woman's pregnant and goes to prison or whatever. That'd be interesting to know what happens with that. But it's just kind of a weak plot point, like, that he just takes the blame to what? Save this bitch who's been killing and his child. It's just really weird. So that's my review of Night School. I'll probably, even though, oh gosh, yeah, even though it's not a movie that I remember it being, it wasn't not so much of a horror movie. It's more of a, gosh, you can tell I have OCD. It's more of a, for the 8th time, thriller / mystery or whatever, whodunit, almost with a very much made-for-TV vibe. I'll give it 1 3/4 stars out of 4 stars, because it's not horrible for what it does. It's just not kind of what I generally like, more of just a in-your-face slasher movie or whatever. So for what it does, it's competent and stuff, and obviously seeing Rachel Ward, I think in like at least 2 individual scenes in the shower and stuff is good. And Rachel Ward at the day, you know, back in the day, early 80s, was just really sexy and whatever and this kind of stuff. So I mean, it's not a bad movie, but you know, if you're more into The Burning and Friday 13th and Mad Men and all this kind of stuff, you know, the more exploitative gore for fun or whatever the hell you want to call it, this movie, very much feeling like a made-for-TV thriller kind of movie, is a little more tame. So maybe if you don't like more of the, you know, the gory horror movies, this might be more up your alley, as a matter of fact, because it's really not that big of a gore fest. And in closing, I will say that it does have this cool scene, which I won't spoil, where basically, you know, the character, I think basically the killer in the movie, cuts off all the heads of these women as well, and there's this one mystery scene with this big pot of whatever you want to call it, big pot of soup or whatever, this diner scene or whatever. So I'll just, you know, in a head possibly or possibly not being in the pot of soup or whatever, which was done really pretty well, that scene, kind of just like, oh my god, you know, is the head in the pot, oh my god. So I forgot about that until just now. The movie have this, basically the, you know, Rachel Ward's character cuts the heads off all these women too, because she's in college, going to night school, studying all this tribal sacrificial, you know, beheading crap and stuff. So, and that's why the cop thinks it's the guy, the professor, because he's the professor of the class she's learning all this shit in. So, I mean, whatever. It's what it is. So, thank you very much for watching and this review. And as always, we'll catch you next time.